This is part 2 of the 2 cherubs in the Holy of Holies are proof that evolution is true, theistic evolution. Now I'm going to summarize part 1 for those of you who have not caught part 1. It's on YouTube, so you should be able to find it. Sometimes my stuff is hard to find, so I'm going to summarize part 1 right now. There are 2 cherubs in the Holy of Holies, which is the innermost room in the temple, Jerusalem temple, that existed in the past. The 2 cherubs, each cherub is a composite figure, a composite statue of 3 animals and a man, the face and head of a man. Now, the fact that the 3 animals, the animals are eagle, bull, and lion. Now, what it is the wings of an eagle, the torso of a bull, and the claws of a lion. Now, these 3 animals are connected. Now, this represents the connectedness of all life. And there's a sequence here. The eagle is a bird which is like a modified form of reptile. So it's the most primitive of the 4 parts. And the fact that it's connected to the bull represents that mammals come from reptiles. And then the lion is a cat. Cats are tree climbers, which is suggestive of a later tree climber, the monkeys and the apes. So the 3 animals, put them together, they represent that the reptiles produced the mammals, which produced a particular type of mammal, the primates. And finally, man is at the top. He's the one, it's his head, which is presented in the cherub. The animals represent the body, but man, it's his head at the top. And that represents that man comes from the animals, but it's God creating him from the animals. The animals are not really responsible for man, just like a child is not responsible for the adult that comes from the child. It's the mother that produces the adult through the child. The mother represents, in this case, God. A mother is the creator figure. Now, that's my summary of part 1. Now, part 2, I want to show that the 2 cherubs are in the Holy of Holies. I want to show that represents the womb. I want to show that the temple is a female figure, and the Holy of Holies is the womb of that female figure. I want to show that the Holy of Holies was the most holy spot on earth from the Jewish point of view. And the fact that this cherub is in that most holy spot shows that the connectedness of life, the oneness of life, is like the most important, is very important to God. And that the truth of evolution is very important to God, because God is who moved upon Moses to have the temple built the way that it was, with the innermost room being called the Holy of Holies, which contains, like I said, the two cherubs. Okay, this truth that all life is connected, the higher species come from the lower species, this is very close to God's heart because of where the two cherubs are located in the Holy of Holies. Not only that, they're on the Ark of the Covenant. That's where God sits, figuratively speaking, or spiritually speaking. The Ark of the Covenant, the lid, is called the mercy seat. It's where God sits. That's why it's called a seat, mercy seat. Like I've said already, the Holy of Holies is the womb of the woman that is in the form of a temple, or the temple is in the form of a woman. Now, what evidence is there in the Bible that the temple should be thought of as a woman? Well, the church is called the bride of Christ. It's described as the wife of Christ. And Ephesians 5, verse 23 through 28 describes the church as the wife of Christ. Or basically it says that a man's wife, a man should love his wife like Christ loved the church. So that puts the church in the position of being the wife figure for Christ. Also, in Revelation 21, verse 2 through 2 and 3, and also verse 9, it has the church as a bride. Now, since the church is a woman, and the church comes from the temple, the Christianity comes out of Judaism. It is an extension of Judaism. It is a form of Judaism. We can say that the church should be a woman, the church is a woman. The temple should be a woman, like the church is a woman. Okay, so we have the idea of the temple being female. Okay, females by definition have a uterus. Mammal females have a uterus in their center, in the center of their body. And with the temple, we should look for a room in the center. And of course, there is a room in the center. It's called the Holy of Holies. And on that basis, we can think of the Holy of Holies as the womb. I should explain that it's the Holy of Holies, which simply means the holiest room. The Holy of Holies is a room within a room within a room. Now, the first room is simply the courtyard, which encloses the temple. We think of it as a room because it's fenced in, but there is no ceiling, there is no roof. But we can think of it as a room, and then the temple itself is the room within a room. And then it's called the holy place. Now, the room within that temple would be the room within a room within a room. So we have three, and that's the Holy of Holies. Now let's consider the possibility that the Holy of Holies corresponds to the womb. If so, then the room in front of that or before that would be the birth canal. Just like the birth canal is in front of the uterus. And the cervix in front of the uterus, which separates the birth canal from the uterus, that would correspond to the curtain, which separates the Holy of Holies from the room in front of it, which is called the holy place. Now, what would correspond to the courtyard around the temple itself, around the whole temple? That would correspond to the clothes that a woman wears. Now, on Yom Kippur, the high priest would enter the Holy of Holies. He'd come through the holy place. Now, if the temple before the Holy of Holies is of the birth canal, then the high priest passing through the birth canal, passing through the temple, passing through the holy place, would stand for the male member. And he would represent God. He would be God's representative in this husband-wife relationship. I should explain, the temple stands for the nation of Israel. So it's the nation of Israel which is the wife. Which it says that in a couple of places in the Bible, in the Old Testament. So the temple stands for Israel. Now Israel stands for the world, and the world stands for the universe. So the real union that is being represented here is God united with His creation, which is the universe. I'm getting off the subject, though. I'm sorry. Now, what evidence is there, biblical evidence, that the high priest stands for the male member? He's wearing a turban, which is sort of like the male member, the head. You can look at the turban, you can find what the turban looks like by going to a Bible dictionary, Bible almanac. Another way the high priest corresponds to the male member is what he does when he enters into the temple, the Holy of Holies in particular. He sprinkles blood on the sides of the Ark of the Covenant. Now, this corresponds somewhat to the male member sprinkling semen on this side of the cervix. There's a difference in that with the male member, he does not go into the uterus. But with the high priest, he has to go into the room which represents the uterus, because he has to do the sprinkling with his finger. He carries a bowl of blood, and he sprinkles the blood on the side of the Ark of the Covenant, which is a little box which contains the Ten Commandments. I'll get into that later. Now, the discrepancy between where the sprinkling takes place is because of the blood cannot travel by itself like semen can, or sperm can. Sperm can travel from the birth canal into the uterus. But in this in this analogy, the high priest has to go into the Holy of Holies, and so that throws people off, you might say. But the blood really can represent the semen. The Bible says, Leviticus 17, it says the life is in the blood, and the life is in the semen also. Now, how does the blood on the box called the Ark of the Covenant, how does the blood on the Ark correspond to the sperm that travels into the uterus? Well, it travels into the uterus where the ovum is. It surrounds the ovum, and then there's fertilization. Now, the blood surrounding the box, or on the sides of the box, it basically imitates the sperm by surrounding the box, by being on all sides of the box of the ark. So there is a bit of correspondence, which makes what I'm saying plausible, I hope. To repeat myself, the sperm travels into the uterus, whereas with the high priest carrying the blood, he's got to go into the Holy of Holies himself. He can't let the blood travel because the blood doesn't have tails like sperm cells do. Okay, now for the Ark of the Covenant. It's a little box that contains the 2 tablets of stone upon which is written the 10 Commandments. It also contained Aaron's rod, which budded, which is a miracle of fertility. So that is suggestive of fertility being associated with the Ark and with the Holy of Holies. Now, the 2 cherubs face each other according to the Old Testament, according to the law of Moses. Their wings are positioned forward, so they're covering the area between them. One stands on one side of the ark, and the other stands on the opposite end, and between them is what's called the mercy seat, where God dwells, supposedly. And the wings of the cherub cover the mercy seat. So it's a little bit like how can God be sitting there if their wings are in the way? Well, he doesn't have a body, so he can sit there regardless of the wings covering that area. Now, this is the throne of God, the top of the ark, the lid. It's called Kapor. I don't have it written here. I have it on another paper. But anyway, it's also called the mercy seat. And now the 2 cherubs, because there's 2 of them, they do correspond to the 2 fallopian tubes above the uterus. Now you might say, well, if the fallopian tubes are above the uterus, so if the Holy of Holies represents the uterus, the cherub should be above the Holy of Holies. In other words, on the roof. But that would not be practical And so instead, the the fallopian tube figures, which are the cherubs, they're on the actual ark, which is actually stands for the ovum. So there's an obvious discrepancy. Get out of here. Get out. Get out. Get out. What's wrong with you? Get out. Get out. Get out. What do the two cherubs have in common with the two fallopian tubes? Well, there's two of them. Like there's two tubes. And they are on the top. Like the fallopian tubes are on the top. And now it's just that they're not on the uterus figure, but they are on sort of a the ark can represent sort of a miniature version of the uterus. On the other hand, the ark does represent, well, the two tablets of stone can represent the ovum. It's either the ark represents the ovum, or the two tablets represent the ovum. And they represent the ovum because the ovum contains the DNA, the instructions for the creating of the body of the offspring. Now, the two tablets of stone, by containing the Ten Commandments, they represent the instructions for the creating of the society, which can be thought of as a offspring, the offspring of God, God and Israel. The nation is the offspring. It's the mother and the offspring together, combination, and the society is the offspring. I want to emphasize the plausibility of the Ten Commandments as the DNA for the nation. The nation is an offspring figure. Like an offspring, a human offspring is made up of cells that make up the body. And with a nation, the people are the cells that make up the body of that nation. And so a nation can be thought of as a superorganism. The nation continues, the people die, the individual die, but the nation continues, just like the cells in your body die. But you continue, your body continues. And there is a correspondence. So try to work with what I'm saying. I'm sorry that I'm not giving a better, a more polished presentation. Okay, the ovum in the womb corresponds to the ark and the contents of the ark, the Ten Commandments. And now for the punchline. Now for the punchline. If what I'm saying is true about the two cherubs representing the oneness of life, the connectedness of life, the truth of evolution, the truth of theistic evolution, not naturalistic evolution, where everything is done by chance, which leaves God out. I'm talking about theistic evolution. Now, if this is true, and this is a secret meaning of the Holy of Holies, of the Ark, of the two cherubs, something that would support what I'm saying is if the word womb can be connected to anything of what I've said, the two cherubs, or the Holy of Holies, or the Ark. Well, wouldn't you know it, the word womb can be connected to the Ark of the Covenant, because the name of the seat, which is the lid, the top of the Ark, that lid is called the mercy seat. And the word mercy in Hebrew comes from the word womb. Or maybe it's reverse. Maybe the word womb comes from the word mercy. But if you look it up in Strong's Bible Concordance, S-T-R-O-N-G, Strong's Concordance, Bible Concordance, for the King James, not the New King James, just the King James, you can find that the word mercy has the same three consonants as the word womb. And I have some examples here. Isaiah 14 verse 1 says, the Lord will have mercy on Jacob. Now you look it up in Strong's, it's number 7355. And you look it up in the back, go to the back, and it's ra-com. That's how you pronounce it, ra-com. The accent is on the second syllable. Now I look up the word womb. It's number 7355. I'm sorry, 7358. And, oh my God, hold on. Yes, 7358. And it's the same three consonants, but the vowel is an E. Recam. Now the three consonants are resh, and then it's kaith, or kaith. It's a ch. It's like a German guttural sound at the beginning, and then it's maim, which is equivalent of M, our letter M. It's equivalent to R and K and M. Now there's actually a word 7356, which is the womb again. 7355 is mercy, but 7356 is womb. And it's basically, it has the same vowels. 7356 as the A vowel again, which is the same as womb. I'm sorry, the same as mercy. And it's the difference is the accent. The accent for mercy is on the second syllable. The accent for womb is on the first syllable. My point is that it is fitting for the central item they call mercy seat, womb. My point is that it is appropriate if the Holy of Holies is a womb, represents the womb. It's appropriate for the central item in that room to be called contain the word womb in the name of it. The name of the mercy seat contains the word womb because of its connection. Because of the connection between mercy and womb. We can say the mercy seat can be thought of as the womb seat. And that lends credence to what I've been saying about the Holy of Holies is a womb, a room that represents the womb. And the the ark containing the Ten Commandments really does represent the ovum. And the high priest does represent what I said he does. And so the two cherubs, they do represent the oneness of life. Now for the PS, postscript. Why would God want to have a temple built and have the high priest, the ceremony of Yom Kippur, correspond to sexual intercourse between a husband and a wife, which is what I'm saying it does correspond to? Well, I suppose that God likes the idea of a microcosm representing a macrocosm. Take, for example, the 199 animals that are sacrificed during the week of the Feast of Tabernacles. That number, 199, corresponds to the number of decades in the church age, from 30 AD running all the way to 2020, or let's say 2019. That's 199 decades. And Paul the Apostle did say in Hebrews 10 verse 1, Colossians 2 verse like 16 through 17, that the law contains a shadow of things to come. It's prophetic. And so the 199 animals connected to the Feast of Tabernacles, that would be for prophetic of the length of the church age. Now that's an example of a microcosm containing the truth of a macrocosm. And you take the length between the Pentecost and Feast of Tabernacles, it's 21 weeks. Well, there's 21 centuries between the first Christian Pentecost in Acts 2, and which is the start of the church age, and the end of the church age, which is the Feast of Tabernacles this year. And there's still a period after the Feast of Tabernacles, but that is properly called the tribulation, which is like, you could say it's separate from the church age, or you could say it is the part of the church age. But anyway, it is a fact. There are 21 weeks and there are 21 centuries. And so those 21 weeks are prophetic. Now there's one more thing. You can take Genesis chapter 1. There's 7 days in creation week. And each day is divided in 2 periods, evening and morning. So there were actually 14 periods.